Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another installment in our Reviewed and Ranked series. Today, we will be covering the final member of the Fantastic Four, and that means that we only have 2 more characters to cover in this series, but we'll get to them in due time. But for now, here is our breakdown regarding The Thing. As always, I want you to check and make sure to see if you are subscribed to the channel. If you're not, please go ahead and fix that for me, especially because there are a couple of other character analysis related items that we will be doing beyond this series. And as always, if you find today's video helpful, enjoyable, and or interesting, make sure that you hit that like button. So we're going to start where we always do when we talk about these characters, by taking a look at the team build synergies that are available. And The Thing doesn't have a lot of those synergies. He has 3 synergies specifically, and only one of those synergies is in a category that I put any sort of significant emphasis on. He has 1 resilience synergy with Guardians of the Galaxy, he has 1 strength synergy with heavy hitters, and he has a defense synergy with Fantastic Four. So when it comes to padding out the versatility and applications of your team, Thing's not really one that you want to have around for variety of team build synergies, but there are other reasons why you would want to consider having him on your team, and we will talk about those at length. But I am a little bit disappointed that he doesn't have more synergies available to him from the team build point of view. Moving on to talk a little bit about the standard features and functions of The Thing. He has a 5-hit combo, and that 5th hit has a very long wind-up to it. It's actually kind of detrimental to his standard kit, but it is a significantly stronger strike, and as an added benefit, the 4th strike of his combo will actually knock his opponents down, and then as he winds up into that final hit, the opponents will stand up and move back in closer to resume combat before being absolutely flattened yet again by that strike. So there is an amount of benefit to it. If you don't want to continue to layer in that damage or wait for that lengthy windup, you can either cancel out of the combo at that point in time, or that 5th hit even has the added benefit of being able to be canceled completely and trigger into one of Thing's abilities. So there are different things that you can do to avoid that lengthy animation and further expand upon your damage output. I thought that that was an interesting choice, but there is the ability to counterbalance it, so I can't really complain a whole lot. Thing's heavy attack is actually a chargeable heavy attack, and we haven't seen that among the cast. Everybody else just kind of lets their heavy attack fly. The only real change that we've seen to that formula was with Punisher, where he has a 3-stage heavy attack, but Thing, he has one that you can charge up and release at any point before it gets to its maximum charge and still deal a considerable amount of damage. It's even a decent option if you want to use this as a finisher off of that 4th hit of your standard combo and then release a partially charged heavy attack, but the heavy attack is decently strong and decently powerful at what it is and what it proclaims to do. So I'm not really going to detract anything from this because there's a lot of versatility in having a heavy attack that can be charged. In terms of jumping, Thing has a singular jump, and that makes sense. He's one of the bigger, heavy characters on the roster, and we don't see a lot of aerial variety or mobility in characters in his weight class. I mean, you just have to look at Hulk and Colossus and other large characters to really get a feel for that. So this completely makes sense. His falling aerial, on the other hand, is a decent falling aerial where it allows him to slam down onto the ground and have a concussive area of striking. And it is in kind of a circular area with the focal point of more damage being directly underneath his character. But unfortunately, as with most of the members of the cast, there is the detriment of not having any abilities that will naturally set him up into using his falling aerial. So there's not a whole lot of opportunities that you're going to find in order to use this feature of his kit specifically. And when it comes to block and dodge animations, Thing does just have a standard boxing stance where he covers the upper part of his body a little bit more, though his arms are angled out a lot wider due to the fact of him not being able to really pull his arms in front of him due to his large, bulky, and stony frame. So that's kind of an interesting attribute to his character as well. And then as he dodges away from the incoming attacks, he will just kind of dash in the direction of influence, which bigger lumbering characters like the Thing can't really get away with rolling out of the way or doing some sort of other spin maneuver. So this completely makes sense in my opinion. Let's now pivot over and talk a little bit about the Thing's abilities. The first ability is the Power Punch, and this has similar elements to some of the other abilities in the cast that we've seen thus far. The biggest one that I do want to focus on is it has some resemblance to the Hulk's Unstoppable Charge. However, the Hulk's Unstoppable Charge can be used continuously by repeatedly mashing the button, whereas the Power Punch for the Thing is a short burst of a run that deals damage during its duration, and then there is a haymaker style punch that is thrown at the end of it that deals a considerable amount of damage. So you do need to kind of keep in mind where the focal point of that strike is going to be, as that's going to consist of the majority of the damage from using this move. But if you do land that, there is a very nice payout for the damage that this move is capable of dealing, because this move has very good stats to back it up. The Power Punch has the melee attack type and the charge synergy trait, has A classifications to both damage and stagger damage dealt, and maintains a nice rating of C to the energy points consumed. So really a lot of phenomenal stats out of this move, though I don't feel like it fits the classification of the DLC privilege move, mainly due to the fact that it has some problems when it comes to tactful use of this ability, as there is a specific focal point for the maximum damage yield. And if it were able to deal damage consistently every single time it was used, it would be a stronger candidate, but I do feel like there's better things in his kit that far surpass these types of rankings. For all but one of the Thing's rank up bonuses on his abilities, he gains the same benefits, and for this one, it falls into the former category, gaining a reduced energy point cost, an increase to the attack damage dealt, an increase to the stagger damage dealt, and finally that reduced chance of the attack being interrupted. The Thing's second ability is the Ground Pound. You thought this was a Mario move exclusively, but no, the Thing actually can do this as well. Though as opposed to the Mario version of the Ground Pound, he doesn't jump up into the air and then slam back down in a seated position, but rather he will repeatedly slam into the ground with both fists. Now, my problem with this attack, especially when used against grunt type enemies, is it will throw and fling them back. So you can continue to use this ability by repeatedly mashing on the button, but the more that you do it, the less efficient it's going to be, because you're going to send the smaller grunt type characters further away and out of the area of influence of the actual shock waves from this attack. So kind of a detrimental use there. And all things considered, this is probably the weakest attack specific move in the Thing's kit, so there's not a whole lot of scenarios where you would want to be using this ability as opposed to other ones in his kit. The Ground Pound ability has the melee attack type and the Slam synergy trait, and has C classifications to both the damage dealt and the energy points consumed, but has a very lackluster rating of E to the stagger damage dealt. The Thing's third ability is the Double Clobber, and this is a very powerful striking blow. This can be charged up and sort of aimed a little bit out in front of the character, and you can also change the direction at the last moment as to where he is going to unleash this blast. I've seen it where he basically turns completely around to attack opponents that are directly behind him if you are not holding a specific direction in which you want to unleash the attack. But this can destroy a lot of in-game hazards pretty quickly, so there's definitely some props to it for that, but it also has very good stats in the realm of the damage that it's capable of dealing. The Double Clobber has the melee attack type and the bash synergy trait, and has the same characteristics as the Power Punch, with that A classification to damage and stagger damage dealt, and still maintaining that C classification to the energy points consumed when using this ability. The Thing's fourth ability is the Ready to Rock, and this doesn't seem to be a very astounding move from a first glance, but it's when you take into account what this move can accomplish that it really shines. And that's the reason why I'm giving it the DLC Privilege Award, is just because it's able to do things that nobody else throughout the cast is capable of doing. So The thing will bend over and grab a very large piece of rubble from the ground, and then he will walk around and use that as a shield. And even though he's holding that rock out in front of him, he becomes completely impervious to damage, even from characters coming at him from the backside, which is very surprising that that's the way that this move works. And as you're seeing here, you can use this move to lumber through the mobile laser hazards that are present in the DLC, which is absolutely astounding to me. Now, you can certainly get through that field faster if you learn the patterns and can jump around and maneuver around them, as opposed to slowly lumbering through them. But if you're having difficulties getting through these sections, all you really have to do is throw the thing on your team for that passing section, activate this ability, and casually walk from one side of the hazard to the other. And as an added bonus, as opposed to any of these other guard type abilities that we've seen, it deals damage at the end when you release holding the button, as he will throw that rock out in front of him and then smash it into pieces. And so it may not be the strongest move in his kit, but the fact that it renders him completely impervious to damage and still deals damage to your opponents once the move is finished, it's an absolute winner. Not the strongest move in his kit at all. If you're looking for the strongest move, that is definitely the double Clobber, but because of what you can accomplish with this move is why it wins this award. The Ready to Rock ability has the melee attack type, and it unfortunately cannot be synergized, but with the other benefits that you get from using this ability, I'm completely okay with that being the case. And this ability has a B classification to the damage that it deals and a C classification to the energy points consumed, while not being a particularly great ability to use for stagger damage, as it only has an E classification to that trait. And as you continue to rank this ability up, it will receive energy point cost reductions at each step of the way. Now, the thing's extreme attack isn't anything particularly spectacular. It draws inspiration from things that we've seen him do in the game already. Mainly, he'll slam down into the ground a couple of times, lift up a large boulder, and then smash that out in front of him for a larger area of burst damage. It's fairly quick in terms of how it's executed and what it brings to the table, so there is a certain amount of benefit to using it under those circumstances, but you do just kind of want to be cautious because it is best used when there's a large group of opponents or a boss that you're trying to focus down directly in front of the thing's character. He doesn't spin around, he doesn't change his trajectory or angle of using the attack of about 4 3/4 seconds. It's a pretty safe bet when it comes to dealing damage to large groups of enemies, and doing so before opponents with their stagger gauges depleted are able to recover and better guard against these attacks. So now that we've had a chance to look at what the thing brings to the table, what he has to offer, we need to decide where he belongs on our overall tier list. And I'm actually very impressed with what the thing is capable of doing, though there are certainly drawbacks to his character. Despite the fact that you can cancel out of his basic attack sequence with abilities or even using the heavy attack, there is a definite drawback to having that type of a wind-up to his attacks, even if they do have stronger strikes. And he's a very up-close melee-type brawling character, so he doesn't have the benefit of bolstering his team, rendering the opponents more vulnerable to attacks or even setting up elemental benefits. That being said, he's still a very powerful and potent character, so it boosts him up well above the lower areas of this tier list, and I even think that it's strong enough to bolster him above the middle or B tier section of the tier list as well. So where do I want to place Thing? I think he belongs right here in between Miles Morales and Colossus. Mainly because Colossus has certain drawbacks to his kit that really kind of hinder his effectiveness, and Thing hits a lot harder and a lot more consistently than Colossus does. So we're going to go ahead and move these characters around. We actually might have to bump Ghost Rider down to this bottom line as well, just because Thing's model is fairly large, so let's see if that is the case. But do you agree with my breakdown of the Thing? Do you think that there is anything that I have missed when looking at his kit? Be sure to let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. We will be back next week to talk a little bit more about Dr. Doom, and I think that you'll be interested to hear my take on that character, as he is very unique in terms of what he has to offer. So I want to thank you for taking some time to watch today's video. If you enjoyed it, make sure that you leave a like, and if you haven't done so already, please be sure to subscribe for that daily variety content. Until then, thanks again for watching, and I hope that you have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day.